because every time I do the spell checker for NeXT, if I spell it wrong when I type it in, that's the one that comes up. And I'm just wondering what that is with the capital XT. Not sure where that came from, but it's like in every spell checker. I don't know if NeXT is like not a big word anymore, or like this other one is more important than the old one with the regular old lowercase with everything thing. But actually, it brings me to the point that I was going to talk about today, which is the non-neutrality of language. I don't know if you're familiar with this idea, but it's a really important idea for me because it reminds me all the time that the language that we speak and the context within which this language exists is not neutral. And it comes up especially in kind of the land of shrinks because there are these theoretical orientations that you might hear about, psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral, CBT. There's CBD now, and I'm always getting confused. But CBT, there's sort of this assumption that as a clinician, you'd go into this working with CBT, and then you'd come out of it. And when you come out of it, you come into this neutral space where everything's, I don't know, something other than not neutral. And I'm really powerfully connected to the idea that that is not the case at all. That we come out to, in many ways, is a well, it's a language that's saturated with a very specific kind of power dynamic that's linked to, in my belief, colonialism and white privilege and white supremacy, and that language and thinking kind of interweaves into the things that we say in lots of different ways, and that it comes up in ways that we don't expect, right? Like that, for example, right? From my experience, the right thing, I'm not sure where it came from or how it's become part of popular language, but for me, it's very much a colonizing idea, because if I say something and then add a right to the end, I'm inviting you into a position of agreement, maybe unintentionally, but for me, when I hear that right, it's this powerful invitation to a position of agreement, regardless of what it is that you have said. And what I'm working towards, what I'm hoping to work towards, is a language in terms of the questions that I ask and the stuff that I'm continually coming back to in the context of the language that I use, into a place that's way more not time-based, but space-based, and way more curious and way more inviting of your experience as opposed to just an imposition of my own. And so if you think about that in the context of colonizing, which is, a practice of me as a colonist moving into a territory that's already occupied by somebody else, in this instance, somebody else's experience, and enforcing my experience onto that space, that's a colonizing practice. I think the right language, the right, is another kind of manifestation of that, and it removes me from a position of curiosity. Now, if that right thing is actually kind of a right, or do you understand what I'm saying, or is what I'm saying coming across to you in the way that I'm intending? That's a whole different meaning, but that's not how I currently experience it. And so we can think about language in general as having that potential. And if it in fact does, which I believe it does, obviously, well, I hope this obviously is another one, actually, because obviously then suggests that you understand that I think that it's obvious. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And so that's another one that actually showed up a while ago. So I'm just aware of these things, but how language can be impositional as opposed to collaborative. And I'm way more interested in collaborative language and way more interested in curiosity positions, and not also wanting to impose those, but hopefully trying to present them here as possibilities, alternative possibilities. So anyway, that's what's next for Dr. Joel. What's next with Dr. Joel? I am Dr. Joel, and I'll be back tomorrow with what's next.